Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. We're going to be talking about some court proceedings and some defense stuff, and as we get ready for it to move forward regarding Idaho for homicides. But as always, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Everyone respect each other, respect the mods, and enjoy your time here. And hopefully, we bring some information to you. And with that being said, we'll get started here with the introduction.
Give me 1 second.
Mrs. Steve there is in the middle of.
I'm trying to type on not my computer.
Oh yes, that's something else tonight as we proceed. We still haven't gotten the old or the new computer system back. We're still working off old.
You got a weird.
Okay.
All right. Y'all ready?
Yep, we're ready. As always, a little brief introduction here. This is Mrs. Steve, and I'm Steve. I'm retired law enforcement, 20 years of service. Started my career off working in the jail, went to the road, and then went into investigations. Over those 20 years, I had all different types of training, and including becoming a crime scene investigator and getting state certified. I've investigated all different types of crimes, from minor crimes, thefts, all the way up to homicides. Then after I retired, decided to become an ambassador for law enforcement as best I could when I created this channel, and we've been moving forward ever since. And this channel has allowed me to not only get in contact with the Web Sleuth community and try to show them how law enforcement works, but also for us to go out and contact we were contacted by other families that had cold cases or family were victims. And we've been able to go out and work with them. And so we want to continue that and move forward. But now for tonight's case. If you have any information about the homicides of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana, absolutely make sure that you get that information to the proper authorities. They'll be taking any type of information you have, tips, leads, and otherwise, both about the homicides and also on the suspect who has been charged, which is this individual here, Brian Kohberger. If you have any information on him, also make sure law enforcement has all that information. But now that the court has started, I looked up, and we're not really going to be going into all and every type of hearing that they're going to have. We're going to be more looking at some of the types of evidence that was addressed in the probable cause affidavit. But I just wanted to put up a little slide or two of what type of hearings they'll have, and motions and conferences as the trial moves forward, or preparing for the trial. The attorneys, both sides, prosecution and defense, they'll be going before the court for a lot of different things, from discovery on, and setting up so that when it does come to the time that the jury pool will be called and they start moving towards seating that jury, that the court moves rapidly and correctly, and that there's no issues that would possibly cause a trial or a mistrial or any type of things that would interfere with justice being found. So, and of course, you can look at these. They got motions to suppress, motion dates, rulings on motions effective of failure to raise defense or objections, and all different type of record hearings. The court system is extremely lengthy and complex, and I'm not an attorney. I sat there and I've sat on the witness stand and testified on countless cases throughout my career, on all different types of cases, from, like I said, lower crimes all the way up to homicides. And it's absolutely amazing that when you get in that courtroom and you see how they are able to bring the case to the focus of the jury and maintain fairness. The judges, when they sit up there, they are in absolute control, and they want to make sure that jury gets all the proper information and only the proper information. And that's where you hear all those objections, both sides and everything. So if you're not familiar with the court systems, if you ever have the chance, and I'm sure with this trial, if it gets into the as it moves forward and it becomes hopefully fully televised, that we'll be able to witness it, and you'll be able to watch it, and you'll learn so much about the court systems. It's a great thing, and the courts are something that we have to cherish and respect. All right. So now let's get into some of the things. I did some visual aids, visual graphics here, trying to show you that currently we only have one side of the issue, and that's going to be the issue that the prosecution has put forth. And the defense, of course, has only brought up really one issue currently, that Brian is going to be denying the charges and will be taking it to court. And so we have to look at it, and I figured that this little visual aids that we can look at some of the things and see how pertinent it will be with the information we currently have. You know, when you look at what the probable cause affidavit has brought to the table, and we and the social media, as we talk about it and the masses look at it and they debate the issues, that when you look at it, you know, you say, well, it's just, how in the world could anyone defend and defeat what's in that probable cause? And it would make you wonder, and because it seems so overbearing, but we're only hearing one side currently, and we don't know what will come up. And we have to bear in mind that if you look in other cases, such as the Casey Anthony case, you saw the exact same thing. You saw, whereas we had a missing child, and then, you know, how could you ever overcome that? And then you saw the defense in those opening statements, and they overcame it. And we have to look at it and respect the courts, that this may be something, and it's something that every case has, that you're going to see the defense step up, and they may come out of nowhere with something that no one anticipated. What we got? Oh, just curious. 499 back in the blue. Thank you for all you've done and all you continue to do. Thank you. Just curious.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. Means a lot to us. And Ayers Dawn 20. Appreciate you and Mrs. Steve. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Ayers Dawn. That
thank you so much.
That is absolutely
so
amazing.
Sweet.
Yes, we appreciate it, and we'll use those funds to the best of our ability as we work those code cases. Thank you. And so you have this preponderance of the probable cause affidavit, and it's, like I said, it's not everything I hope that the prosecution has. I hope they have far more. And as we go through these slides, you'll see what the potential of what the prosecution has hinted at in that probable cause affidavit. And we have absolutely no clue currently of what the defense is going to do, or I don't. Now, there's maybe some experts out there that have far greater understanding, but we just don't have any public statements of, you know, exactly which way they will attack and how they attack. We know they will attack, and and one of the things they have to attack is this sheath and the DNA profile that's on that sheath, and they won't be able to win at the issue that it's not his DNA. We have the experts that have put that number on it, 99.9998%, that the profile they had was of the father of the offender. And now that they have his Kohberger's, Brian Kohberger's DNA profile, they'll link it to that. And then, of course, they'll have that match at whatever number that is. And so they'll be able to have that will come to the courts. And that'll be new evidence. That's not in the PCA because they didn't say it was. They just showed what the father was. And so they'll have another DNA profile that they'll present to the court. And, of course, the defense has to explain how that sheath possibly could have got into the crime scene and next to that victim. And will they? And we just don't know how they would do that. And, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could speculate of how they will try to introduce that sheath got into that crime scene, and we just don't know. And then we have some other, type of, circumstantial evidence, the cell site locations. This is a free country. You can travel anywhere around the country and get in your car, drive by, drive around. And it's not as hard hitting and as significant of a bullseye that, yes, you're in the area. You may be nearer the home. And what will be his reasoning of driving by there? And of course, that will be far easier for the defense to explain. Although when you look at the location, as we've always said, and I've spoken on Mob Crew's show and on my show, that this residence is not on a main pass-through thoroughfare. It's in it sets off the roads. It's back located in around no major shopping center. Now, within a short distance away there is, but how good is the cell site location information that they have? And all that be brought into court and be addressed. And then we have a little bit better information about that this street, residence of 1122 King Drive, that there's a camera that's on that street, and you can see vehicles coming in and out. And of course, they probable cause says that they see a white car similar to what he owns driving up down that street. Once again, it's only similar, and it matches what he drives. And so it's not really a bullseye, but it is there during a certain time period, and so it's, you know, circumstantial. And what the prosecution is going to try to do, of course, is stack all these together. That's all supporting evidence, and it leads to one conclusion. And that's how come the importance of that sheath and that DNA is. That if you knock that out, then the case starts getting a little bit weaker. And so they're going to attack that with everything they got. And then in the affidavit, they also mentioned about the multiple visits to the area that is supporting from the cell site location. And it appears if you go from the rumors, and not really rumors, but the other testimony or interview from a parent that said that Kohberger's devices had made contact with the Wi-Fi, then that's a little bit more supporting. And if you take it, and we do have during those visits that the cell data is supported with the Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is a limited distance. I mean, it's not anything great. And so when you have those two put together, then of course, then we say that, yes, he's within a certain distance. But once again, there's nothing says that any individual just can't ride around the roads, and he has no reason. He doesn't have to explain, and he can't be forced to explain why he's riding around. I mean, it's highly suspect of why. And, you know, in hindsight, and when you look at, we have the DNA that we know, but what if the jury doesn't know that? What if the jury doesn't understand that there is a sheath or DNA? And so that's the thing that this defense is going to attack. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. They're going to go after that. And with the defense on this same issue about having bullseye, the defense and his denial for the fact is that all he has to say is, I want a trial. It's not me. And that's a bullseye, because every one of us is guaranteed that we're innocent until proven guilty. And so he has an absolute right to claim that. His attorneys will fight that issue, and it's what it is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, you know. And, you know, so he'll have that no matter what gets wiped out on the prosecution. His ability, the defense ability for him to say, it wasn't me. You're going to have to prove it's me, and you're going to have to prove it to a high level. That's what the courts require. It's not just probable cause. You have to put it out there and prove within reasonable doubt, without reasonable doubt, that it is him. And so it's a high level you have to go to. And then the defense, there's several different types of defenses that you could have, of course, is just saying, I'm innocent. I deny, I have nothing to do with this. And, you know, I have no way of proving my innocence. I just say I didn't do it. And it's left up to the prosecution to prove it. And then there's affirmative defenses, whereas you can say that certain situations called you to commit a homicide, which in this case, the victims were, the homicides were within their own residence. They were in bed. There's nothing that the defense can bring up that he had no choice but commit homicide. So that's going to be tossed out. I mean, that's not something that he could do. They may, of course, try to fight and bring up some law issues, but all of those are so far reaching, you don't have to worry about. And then we find out, so the affirmative is just off the board. It's not even on the of getting any type of points or any type of leverage that has any bearing on the case. So you can count the affirmative out. Insanity, as Idaho has, that they don't allow certain pleas. I think they do have some mental, incapacities or capacity issues that they can bring to the court, but it's not anything that will get him not have to face the consequences. And then, of course, you always have the alibi and the other, and that's the other and the alibi, because what if Brian Kohberger does have an alibi? We don't know that currently. What if he does have an alibi? What if he, during all the planning issues and things that he's trying to plan this, that there's always a possibility that he has gone out and created a situation where he would have an alibi, and he may have a legitimate alibi. We just don't know it. And the prosecution will be preparing for that. And I think at some point he'll have to make some type of revelation of which way his defense is going to go, because the prosecution has to have that. But it's these other defense things that he could bring in that from out of nowhere, just like with the Casey Anthony case, just out of nowhere, you had this, huge declaration, revelation that came before the court that no one anticipated, and defenses are known to do that. And then we go back to the prosecution on another slide, and within the probable cause affidavit, they talk about the van shoe and the print that was left outside the door as he was in the path that he was walking, that the witness said this is the path that he took when he was leaving Zana and Ethan's room. And from the affidavit, they show that they were able to develop a latent print on the floor. Well, and they said it was from some type of, they went out there and did a presumptive blood test, and they was able to develop this latent print, which means, and this is something that the offender may or may not have known about. It's one thing that if once he got away from the crime scene, separation, he was cleaning, and he realizes that his shoes are contaminated or something, then of course he could discard them and we'd lose that DNA profile. But if he didn't, and they're able to find those shoes and process them, then of course that's going to be huge. That's another DNA profile that if he's in possession of a pair of shoes that has the DNA profile from any of the victims, then of course it's over. How would he be able to explain that? Because his DNA would be on the insides of the shoes, and from him wearing, handling constantly. But even if he's discarded them, that doesn't mean that the prosecution and the CSI world can't develop other types of evidence proving that he owned these shoes. All you have to do from the CSI part of it is that you go to his residence and you find areas in his residence where shoe patterns can be left that are latent that you never know. One place around the house that latent prints are left all the time are right there at the refrigerators. Generally, it's linoleum or some type of hard surface outside that, and in your bathroom, same place where that you're going to do a lot of cleaning and you have a linoleum. But you can process those floors and develop shoe prints. And so if they're able from his residence to go in there and develop those shoe prints and match it back to the same pattern, because shoe prints are unique. They're just almost identifiable as fingerprints. You'll have certain wear patterns. You'll have certain cuts and marks. And if you get lucky enough, you can identify a shoe print from damage that he has, that as you walk on certain surfaces, certain cuts or wear patterns come on that shoe, and you can identify them. And will the prosecution be able to either find that shoe that has that DNA profile on it, or will they be able to go in there into the defendant's home if they can't find the shoe in his possession and process that, oh yes, recently he was an owner of a pair of those shoes, and now where are those shoes? And that all be circumstantial evidence, unless they can match the similar, some type of identifying marks off that shoe pattern. Then we get to the vehicle and the vehicle DNA. Once again, it's so important that these are the unknowns. We don't know where on this visual aid, is it going to be a home run, a bullseye, or not? And the same profile from the processing of this, if this is his vehicle and he was the one that was responsible for these homicides, and we're talking about this narrow window of opportunity from the camera work of when, and the cellular signal information of when he was in the area, and from the last camera of the vehicle being in motion to him going into the residence at 11:22 and leaving in that short time period, and leaving there around 4:20. I mean, you're only talking about 15, 16-minute time frame that the witness saw him leaving or heading in that direction, walking past her, that there was no time for him to clean up before he got back to the vehicle, if that is the vehicle he left in. And after committing 4 homicides and after 4 close quarter incidents, there will be a transfer of DNA. There will be that blood transfer. There will be everything. And then he would be able to take it to his car, creating a link to another crime scene of the vehicle. And that will be processed, and DNA is possibly in that vehicle, which is something else that is absolutely something that will have a great bearing on the case. Then we have to look at the residence, not only the residence at 11:22, but at the residence in Pullman of the offender, of DNA, cross-contamination from the two. If we have additional DNA from the offender, Kohberger, that is left within 1122 King Drive, and it's some type of DNA that's left there from a cut injury, and it's intermingled with the other blood patterns, that's going to be huge. And get to the residence, if there's cross-contamination of the victim's hair, fibers, or otherwise found at his residence in Pullman, then that's going to be huge also. And the DNA on this is absolutely something that all the CSI will be working towards. And then in the probable cause affidavit, they mentioned that essay, that research paper that he was looking at and doing travel, or maybe not pre-travel, but before he started courses, because we don't know how many times he may have traveled, because I was speaking to Dr. Susan about this case, and I was asking her, how long does it to get that doctorate? When does the process start? And she indicated it would take months, and a lot of it probably could be done online now, but that the processes and the number of people that are accepted is very low, and it's 8-9 month process. It's not just that you show up a week before and you're allowed to get into this type of program that he was entering. That is extremely in depth, and that's very selective. That they just don't let you in just because you have the money. You have to meet and all the requirements to meet their program and be interviewed and otherwise. Which, like I said, we have different, from what she said of how she went through it early on and many years ago may be different than now. We have new technologies and stuff. So, but once again, the defense gets to hit that bullseye, and they deny. You have to prove all this, and I deny it. And the others, like I said, affirmative defense and insanity is really off the table, off the mark on this target. But we still have to worry about what else we bring in. Are there going to be some alibis? Are there going to be that other that we just don't know? Then we get to our final slide here, that the prosecution, that we know that law enforcement suspected him long before than they really anyone realized that wasn't within that loop, and that he was under surveillance for a significant amount of time. And what he was doing, they'll have hearings and things about what can be brought into the court, and the jury will have access to hearing. But anything he did that was suspicious, or they saw the destruction of, or possibly destruction of any type of evidence or anything, prosecution may or may not be able to get that in the court. They will be able to get it in court if they find a DNA profile within that vehicle. If the surveillance says that he's cleaning that vehicle, and then they find the victim's DNA in that vehicle, that is going to be huge, especially if he's doing it with certain types of protections. Of course, his DNA can be in the vehicle all he wants. There's nothing. I mean, that's a done thing. But the victim's DNA cannot be in that vehicle. And if it is, and he was cleaning it, he has a hard road to travel on that. Then the prosecution also, that we don't currently have any idea of what the search warrants and what they have been able to obtain, what type of computers and the history that they would have been able to get off those searches and things. And both from Pennsylvania, pre-travel or during his, Laura became a YouTube member. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate your support. And so we really don't know exactly what all the search warrants will focus on. And they'll focus even on his financials, because financial records, when you have on offenders and things, will tell you about where they spent money, their travels, and what they bought, and as they moved in each community. We all have that, unless you just go out and pay cash all the time for everything. You will have a trail, a digital signature of everywhere you go throughout across the country and in your community, and you're able to track that. And also what was on his computer as far as history of what types of searches he may have done from Pennsylvania, of Idaho and Washington. And once he got there in Washington, from the computers and all his digital devices, what did he search for on those devices? What addresses did he type in? Is there ever a time that pulled up 1122 King Road? And if any of his searches pre-crime, and there's a search that shows 1122 King Road, that will be huge. And that's something that I don't know how they would ever be able to explain. But once again, you just never know how defenses will address issues. Then we have to look at the trash that we know that was talked about in the probable cause affidavit. They mentioned that that was where they was able to obtain the father's DNA of the offender. But from the trash also, what trash did they take? Was it also from Washington State when he was there? Was it from another area where he took his vehicle to any type of car wash anywhere, or when he got back to Pennsylvania that he cleaned his car? And did they find additional? Aries Dawn became a YouTube member. Thank you, Aries
Well,
Dawn.
she was a member, but then somehow or another it dropped off. So now she's back.
Okay.
So thank you for coming back.
Thank you. And so we look at the trash. That there's so many different ways that trash is so revealing. And like I said, trash has been argued all the way to the Supreme Court about how big an impact it could have on a trial, and absolutely amazing. And then we have to look at the Wi-Fi as far as what the prosecution is going to be able to do with it. There's not in the there may be a hint within the probable cause of because they mentioned 12 visits, and then the father, YT grandma, $10. Again, thank you.
I love that name.
Yeah.
I love that name.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Because the importance of that Wi-Fi, if the father, like you said, that Kohberger's Wi-Fi touched, or the Wi-Fi was touched by Kohberger's devices, that is huge. And how many times was it touched, and what times of day and night? And not only that, but law enforcement would go around, like I did my experiment the other day. They know every Wi-Fi signal around that residence. You walk around it, look at your device, it tells you where they at. So now they just got to go in, find those routers, find those Wi-Fis, and do the searches on those. And if they have some data on that, we're going to see that. And I think that this court case is going to be huge with the technology that will be brought out in this court for this prosecution. I think it's going to be something that we've never seen in this country before, and addressing this quadruple homicide. And the defense, like I said, once again, it still gets to hit that bullseye. He says, I don't have anything to do with it, don't know anything, it's not me. And then the alibi and the other is always the unknown. But we'll start getting hints at some of this information, and we'll get to see as we move forward exactly what the defense will be possibly heading toward, or we'll get it if we get it in that opening statement. Then of course it will be a moving, shattering moment if it's anything like we've seen in the past of what some defenses will do. But like I said, I enjoy watching the court system. I enjoy watching justice. And with that being said, if we got any questions, we'll look at them.
You have a few.
Oh, let me do this right quick.
Okay.
Like again, as we move into the final part before we get to questions, if you have information on this case of the homicides of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, or Xana, let law enforcement know. Absolutely, just as soon as possible. And also for the offender who's been charged in it, if you have information that exonerates or information that either way helps or hurts his defense, let the proper authorities know.
All right, we're going to start with Miss Dog Lover. What are your thoughts on the case being linked to the shooting at WSU? Some people on YouTube are now speculating about a connection between the deceased and BK.
I haven't really even addressed and looked at that. I know that that was one of the things that was brought up as he was talking in the car, but I don't know what the timeline, and I don't, at that point, I don't even know when the shooting occurred. And so we'd have to look at it, and was he under surveillance at that time? Which it may be an issue, but if he was under surveillance at that time, and law enforcement would have took him into custody at that time. So, you know, you can't have it both ways, saying that he's involved in it. But now, like I said, I don't know all about the shooting. I think it was a security guard or something, but maybe, and I know that maybe a different type of association that they're talking about. I really haven't looked into it yet, but
That'll be your homework.
That'll be my homework.
All right, and CJK, when it's time for questions, Dateline said 2 days prior to the homicides, there was a party at the house with up to 150 people. At Steve, how do you even begin separating their DNA from Brian's?
Well, they have to look at what is most recent and what is relevant to the crime. When you have the a homicide victim laying there with a knife sheath, of course, that's the easy stuff. And then you have to go in and look for other blood pattern and do those blood pattern analysis. casual fingerprints and casual DNA profiles that are not some way linked by some type of blood pattern or blood transfer or blood spatter, then you're right. How in the world would you? And you probably won't be able to. Whereas you have to find something that's linked to that crime that will be that DNA profile. And the victims may hold that key. And I say that from the ones that have the defensive wounds. At any point during those struggles for survival, were they able to possibly inflict some type of harm against the offender? Were they able to scratch him? Were they able to pull his hair? And so if you have those hair or fiber or anything that links Kohberger to the residence, from skin cells to any type of other type of evidence, then that's how you do it. Just a casual fingerprint somewhere or a casual DNA on a glass or something, you're right. You're not going to be able to say that, well, he wasn't there during that. Is it even possible that he was there prior to that? He drives by and he sees this huge party and everyone's there, and he decides just to walk in and possibly be inside. Absolutely is possible. And it's, and it may have not even been a week before. It could have been a month before. We don't know when he began the targeting and was there. Law enforcement has a clearer understanding than that we do.
All right. And Molly at True Crime Web, how close to 1122 King Road can cell phone pings be determined? Like within feet, yards?
Well, from the cell site location information, when I did my tests, sometimes they were dead on. I mean, they were there. And then sometimes they were hundreds of feet incorrect, and several hundred feet. And well, actually, sometimes just put you within a mile or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just a circle.
But that was in Delphi.
Yeah.
Though we don't know what technologies, and we don't know the cell tower and how many cell towers are talking about in this location. And but we will find out, because that will be a huge part of this case, and we're going to learn exactly what cell towers, when, how, and what triangulations and GPS. I mean, there's so much data out there of how they might be able to put him within that ground.
And Molly, any thoughts, ideas on BK's attorney requesting prelim hearing be put out 6 months from now?
No, I mean, yes, I mean, they've got so much information, and it may be that they're anticipating, like I am anticipating, that there's going to be so much technical data on this, and they're preparing, and it's going to be, like I said, there's going to be so much information, and they may be having, from the defensive standpoints of, they're going to have to get out and find those experts, and they already know who the experts are, of bringing in that's going to counter any information that's going to come the other way. And it takes time to prep, not only for the prosecution, but it takes time to prep for a defense.
And Perfect Fosters, that's cute too. Did they suspect Brian without having his DNA linked to him?
I personally, I've always thought that as you go out and you do those charts and you create these lists of data, and that they would have gone out possibly and tried to create a list of individuals that were within a certain part of the area. And then they, of course, we understand that we have the Wi-Fi, and how many people came in contact and in what time frame were they looking at? Well, if they're looking at the night of the homicides, they wouldn't have got that from his device. But maybe if they were looking at other times of stalking. But the big thing is that when I think it was like on the 23rd or 26th, when they sent out the information prior to releasing the white vehicle to the white Elantra to the public, they notified the other agencies. After the FBI looked at it and said, this is what we're looking for within this certain 2011, 2013 time frame of a model vehicle, and they sent it out and they asked other agencies, do you know of a white Elantra within your jurisdiction? And you had the one campus in Washington State that said, yes, we have one. And so was he put on a short list then? Yes, he was put on a short list at that time, especially when they went back and reviewed the camera footage, and they said he had the same bushy eyebrows, and were able to start narrowing. At that point is when I believe somewhere in November that he was put on that extreme short list.
And Susan Purdy at Mr. Steve. I guess only things I'm confused about is why his lawyer filed for any statements made by co-defendants and why search warrant is sealed for our protection.
Yes, that is interesting. And is there any others out there? And that's part that they're going, law enforcement, when they obtained all his information on his cellular footprint, that's also going to include who was he in contact with. So they're going to know prior to the homicides, who was he talking to, and who other devices were parallel with his that were pinging same location. You know, if he's talking to somebody, texting, phone calls, either in or out, all that information, not just related to tracking him to 1122, but it's going to include other information about who he was talking to. And so if he's talking prior to, if he's talking to someone at the 3 o'clock in the morning, the night of the homicides and prior to the homicides, law enforcement has that. And so is this what it's referencing? I have no idea currently. We will know at some point, but that is a great point and great observation.
And Molly, is the gag order still in effect?
I haven't, like I said, I always said that, you know, the prosecution let everyone know up front that the Constitution of Idaho requires them very limited of what they can speak from the get-go. And can a judge issue something even further restraining upon the officers of the court? And yes, and until I see them out there on the front steps meeting with the media, then yeah, gag orders in.
All right, and SSS. So it was latent and not patent.
Yeah,
Patent. So blood serum, maybe.
They said it was a presumptive test, and I would say more latent for the fact that they said, and I think it actually says latent in the probable cause affidavit, and they didn't find it until the second time there, which means it's more hidden and or not, you know, something that just pops out and easily seen. And I've got some tests coming up on that, so that we'll be addressing that and show you some of the differences on that. But yes, when they did, and once again, when you do some of the blood presumptive test, if they hadn't have mentioned blood presumptive test, which there's a lot of time on proteins, but we don't know which presumptive test they did for blood. And there's several different ones, which one they used, and proteins, because proteins can be from other fluids other than blood, but he mentioned blood, so I'm going with blood more than likely. And when I do my test, I'll be doing a test with the synthetic blood.
Here we go. My goodness. All right, SB 74. LE must have been frustrated watching Brian thoroughly clean that car while waiting for the warrant. Is there anything they could have done to confiscate the car sooner?
No, I'm sure that there was a lot of, oh my gosh, moments, heart-stopping moments for the investigators, um, and um, and how much of that was been documented. All of it would have been documented. They saw him doing it, and then when they seized the evidence at some point from the trash, because I'm sure they would have tried to secure that. That if he cleans it, what does he do with all the cleaners, paper towels, rags, vacuumings? Um, you know, uh, where is that? Because they're going to go out, and if they can obtain that and find some type of hair fiber or DNA profile from the crime scene, and he's the individual that cleaned it out of his car, and plus his DNA's at the scene in several different possible um, variations, then and that will be another nail in the coffin.
And just curious.
Could they have interceded sooner? They would have wanted to, but it takes probable cause that if you step in too soon and you don't establish, no, they stepped in as soon as they could. I assume. I don't know all the uh, information, but you can't step in too soon, and I don't think they jumped the gun, although they would have probably wanted to.
You good?
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Just curious. State of Idaho insanity plea is prohibited, but they do carry the death penalty. If Brian is guilty and as smart as he thinks he is, why would he have chosen Idaho to commit this premeditated crime?
I have no idea, and hopefully one day,
That is
if
a
he
very
is,
good question.
it is. And one of these days, hopefully, he will stand there and explain that if he is the one that's responsible for those horrible crimes, that hopefully he'll tell us why.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, hold on 1 second.
We got some
Check.
good questions. Excellent questions.
Yes. And Tammy Sparks at Steve, do you think it's possible they could have BK on camera getting in or out of his car at or near the house and not just the car?
That has drove me crazy.
It sure has.
I've read that affidavit, especially about all the times he was driving around, and that brings up the issue of, and I can understand what other people say, because we're only looking at about a 15 or 16-minute window of opportunity of parking the vehicle and going and making entry. That if we just look at from the time he gets there, it doesn't address the issue of, is there a possibility of someone else driving him around that dropped him off an hour earlier or 30 minutes earlier? We don't know. But it absolutely just drives me crazy. And I've tried to figure that out. And we just don't know. Because even law enforcement brought out that we believe if you were an occupant or the occupants in that vehicle, what do they know and why did they say that? And of course, the defense will find out from that. But like I said, the thing that will absolutely clarify that will be BK's cell phone data. Who was he talking to prior to this? If he's not had any contact with anyone else in his community or in the state of Washington, and anyone else that was with him at any point, and what text messaging, that's going to clarify. And does law enforcement have that information? If they have it, then of course we can look forward that there will be other things and possibly other people facing charges or already are. We just don't know. But yeah, his cellular footprint will tell us a lot. And like I said, law enforcement knows it.
And Jeannie Lady, could he have bought a second Elantra, drive 1 to 2, 2 to the crime, 2 from crime to ditch and burn a river, then take 1 back home? Whoa. So when you conclude it's him, you never find DNA in one.
I contemplated this exact scenario a week or two ago, and I didn't say it because I really didn't want it out there. But yes,
Wouldn't that be expensive though?
well, I know, but if you're trying to do the perfect crime in theory of unlimited funds and things,
Oh,
yes, it's
okay.
possible.
All right.
But yes, I had thought about that. I just wasn't ever going to throw that theory out there.
Well, there you go.
But you're absolutely correct. I was thinking about that. How would you do that? And as I mentioned earlier tonight, that other, but the other is if he's trying to commit such a perfect crime, is that something he might possibly have done? Yes. But I'm hoping not.
All right. And Laura, Steve, can you help the public differentiate between what is a good tip and what isn't? Is it better safe to tip something in than to not?
A good tip is a tip that law enforcement has. That's what a good tip is. If you have any idea of anything that went on that day, because if you may have the best tip in the world and you think it's absolutely garbage and you keep it to yourself, and it is garbage because law enforcement doesn't have it. So the best tips in the world are the tips that's turned in to law enforcement. And if that best tip is never turned in, then it's trash. But even the trashy tips, call them in, let them know. They ask for them. When law enforcement says no longer tip in any information about a certain title or subject, then you know, okay, I don't need to bring that in there. But until they disqualify certain tips, if you have information, the good tips is what law enforcement has. And so you have to call in any knowledge. They'll evaluate it and do what they think is correct with it.
And Ann, hi, Mr. Steve. Thoughts about plausibility of timeline that the arrest affidavit. To me, 12 minutes is preposterous for 4 stabbing fatal attacks on 4 healthy young adults on 2 different floors, in my opinion. She sounds exactly like you did.
Yeah, it drove me crazy, and it still drives me
It
crazy.
still drives you crazy.
Because I look at it, and of course, I've looked at injuries, and homicides are not quick times by knife injuries, and so they can be extremely slow. And it is it possible? Absolutely. We know it's possible that he could have been because he was a trained individual, and when you see him in the court and walking and everything, you look at him, see he's agile and he has proper training, and he's appears to be healthy, young, strong, and could he have done it? Yes. Did he within that time frame, or was there extended time frame that we just don't know about yet? But yes, I have the same thoughts as you are about that. It is highly unlikely, but it is possible.
And the Rockaways. Steve, can you help me make sense of the shoe print? It was a shoe print in blood that was not visible to the naked eye. Would you expect to find other more visible shoe prints in blood?
Okay. Actually, I've got some testing, and I have a presentation that's coming up addressing this issue. But the easiest way for you to visualize this is that go out in your garage or any concrete surface, step into a little or wet the bottom of your shoe and walk away from it. And you'll see that the shoe prints, every step, they diminish in value of how much you can see them, how visible they are. And towards the end, when they almost disappear, the same thing happens as you walk and you have some type of blood transfer on your shoe pattern. And he could have been walking on one surface that it wasn't easily discernible that there was blood tracks or blood transfer prints. But then he stepped on a surface that was extremely receptive, such as one type of wood versus another type or a different shade. And because it's hard to see, and I know I have a red-green deficiency. And it's hard to see certain blood stains and patterns on certain surfaces. And then as blood, if you're looking at a very small amount, it's going to dry relatively quickly, and you may not see it for what it is until later. And yes, I've got some examples and some control tests that I'm going to be doing, and I'll show you this. And then, like I said, I've got some chemicals ordered that I will be developing a medial black blood print so that you'll be able to see it. That'll be, like I said, I've got the stuff ordered. It just hadn't come in. Searching is not real quick sometimes. But I'm working as hard as I can, as quick as I can.
All right. And just curious, I heard Brian was also caught on 1122 Wi-Fi. Did you hear about that, Steve?
Yes, that's what the father made reference to during that his Wi-Fi or his device touched the Wi-Fi. And that's why I went and did the other test on the Wi-Fi's of seeing that when you walk or go up to a neighborhood, how many Wi-Fi's do you touch? How many are locked? How many are unlocked? And what can you, if it goes one way, then it goes the other way. The abilities of these data that is accessible is absolutely amazing on the digital footprints you leave now.
And Molly at True Crime Web, does LE still use a big wall whiteboard to pin pictures, facts, use the yarn for linking? A visual is always good. Not everyone sees connections on a spreadsheet of data.
I did. I don't know what they do. But yes, I have a whiteboard up top.
We still have a whiteboard.
Yes, and we use it all the time. So I'm still of that visual. When I look at a photograph, I'm very visual. I look at the things like that. And some people, everybody's different on how they process data.
All right. And PK, Olivia documentary, interesting point. Ring doorbell footage shows K and M arriving home at 1:56 a.m. What else does that ring doorbell show?
That's a good point. And that is exactly. And we will hopefully, like I said, law enforcement knows.
All right. And Molly. If he vacuumed the car at a public car wash gas station, does Ellie need a search warrant for the gas station?
There's no expectation of privacy from him, but they would have contacted the proper authority or owner of the vehicle, of the car wash, and obtain permission to get access to those traces.
And Ms. Sweet, maybe he attended a party there.
Very possible, but like I said, if it's blood DNA or if it's other things, then of course that'll have to be explained.
Okay. Hold on one second.
I'm with you.
I'm working. All right. And Ann, what's your thoughts about how that knife sheath came to be left behind? Could it have come off his belt? Did he enter house with the sheathed knife in hand, or other scenarios?
I think he probably came in with a sheathed knife in hand. That's just my thoughts. And during the course of the close quarter and the struggles from a victim, that it was just lost in the fog of close quarter fighting. And he lost it, didn't know where it was. And at what point did he realize? Was it one, like I always say, is it the Crocodile Dundee carry where he has a knife sheath just stuck into his waistband? Is that possible? Yes. Could it have been on a belt and they broke his belt? Sure. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways that it could have got. It could have been in a pocket. It could have been on a belt that got broke, or the leather loop of the sheath broke. I mean, there's so many different ways that it could have been lost there at the residence.
And Ms. Sweet, if he connected to the Wi-Fi numerous times, then wouldn't he have to know the password? Wi-Fi password?
Well, some of the Wi-Fi's are locked, some of them are not. And I don't know which one it was. And I also don't know how the algorithms identify you as a person that is in the area on the Wi-Fi, the technology. There are people out there that specialize in that, and they'll be able to go in and look at some of that data. Whatever their information was, is that the father advised that there was indications that Kohberger's device touched that Wi-Fi. So that Wi-Fi was able to identify him. And were there other Wi-Fis in the area that would have identified him? Law enforcement will be looking for them and using that same technology.
Okay, and Miss Doglover just mentioned about the networks. I think touching means showing up on available networks, not necessarily connected, like what we did in the car the other day. Okay.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, it touched, and as long as you touched it, means you're within a certain distance.
Right.
And that's all it means. But it is supporting evidence of him being in the area at certain times, of the supporting evidence of the cell information and data.
And Casey Ann, this might sound far-fetched. Could he have used two knives?
Sure. Yes. I mean, we don't know. We have no idea. But we know, I believe that law enforcement believes that the one for that knife sheath, that they have supporting evidence that a knife meeting those parameters was used. And that one, without a doubt. Was there another one? Possible. We just don't know.
All right, and Vicki Ann, Mr. Steve, I saw on another channel they are indicating another person drove the car, which is why they were circling. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've run that through my mind 10,000 times because it's the time frame is extremely tight, and then law enforcement made that one statement, or maybe in multiples, but I know it was referenced at one time. Occupant or occupants of that vehicle may have information regarding the homicides, and which has always stuck with me, and that's where I keep going back, that Kohberger's cellular contacts is going to reveal if there is that possibility of another, not so much the night of the crime, but previous contact. How often did it, if it is possible, if he's never once spoke, talked, or did anything with anyone on his phone that's in that area, then of course it's not likely that he has a co-offender. Just like you look at your phone, you know who you call every day, you know who you call weekly, you know your business associates, you know when you contact people you are friends with, and it's no different for any individual. We all have the same habits.
And Lena G, sorry I'm late, but I have a question. Why was Ethan left out of the probable cause affidavit?
I'm trying to think, was he left out? I don't really know where he was left out on that. I'm sorry, I just missed that link. I don't know.
All right, so homework.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
They said a death regarding 4 homicides. So, I mean, I thought, I just take it that he is included in the probable cause affidavit because we're looking at quadruple homicides.
All right. And just curious, Steve, what is the most unpredictable piece of evidence that ended up getting someone convicted that you can remember in any of the cases you worked?
Oh, my goodness, man. I have no idea, but I will think about that and get your answer on that, because I've been working on this case and hadn't even thought about that, but I'll get back with you on that. That's a good question.
You're going to have to think back a minute or two, ain't you?
Yeah, because unpredictable piece of evidence. Huh. I like that. I'm
All
gonna
right,
write
you
that down.
stumped him.
No, you
Good
ain't stumped me.
job. Gold star for the day.
I gotta find what the unpredictable is. I may have it by the end of the show. I don't know.
All right, and Molly, anyone know the dimensions of the bedrooms? They look really small on the photos, 360 view, but things always look smaller with no furniture to my eye. But those look like 10 by 10 bedrooms. Anybody know?
I don't know, but yes, you're
Chat
correct.
it in.
Yeah. It does. I agree with you that they do look extremely small, and
Well, the house is weird.
yeah, it's big, and it was built for profit, not for comfort.
Usability. All right, so give me just 1 second. Let's see here.
I'm still working on the unpredictable piece.
Okay, so you work on that. Let's see. All right, so here we go. Then I've got to catch up. The unpredictable threw me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that I processed it for everything, so I never really found something I didn't expect.
All right. So Eric's plot Cupid. Do you think he has buried the knife and other evidence, or he put them in the water?
If I had, and just speculating, I would go with water, or just thrown out off a cliff or something. But yes, I would not think of, but I would go with water versus digging, because you have to have the tools to dig unless you use the knife.
Okay. And SSS, do you think they moved on him because they suspected he had more violence planned, perhaps toward his family?
Anything, and they would have had surveillance on, and they would have been seeing what was going on and what the interactions. And is that a possibility? Yes, if they had enough probable cause. But they acted in the early morning hours, and as the Pennsylvania law enforcement official said, everything was addressed, and they had to get permission to go at that time. And so that was something that they had scheduled out. Whereas if it's something that he had become violent at a certain time, then they just had to move in, is one thing. But they planned for a certain time. They got the exclusion for the search warrant and the arrest warrant to move, and which is more towards that. It wasn't what he was about to do or going to do.
And Lena G, do you think the DoorDash could have been a ruse?
I think law enforcement cleared that up, qualified it pretty much, that they talked to the driver and everything went because they included it, and with more information come out about that. And if it does, I just didn't include it in mine, but there is that possibility. I just wrote it off as it was an innocent, just showing that she was awake and mobile within the house. And that possibly was what made Kohberger and her cross paths.
And Aries Dawn, I love this. Could he have met a criminal from a response to his research questions who could have helped him?
Absolutely. But like I said, if that's the case, then we know, and law enforcement knows that, for the fact of the digital devices, from computers, emails, text messaging, phone calls, that they would have set up some type of meeting.
Okay, I think I did it here. Oh, and just curious. Thank you so much for the super sticker.
Appreciate your support. Thank you.
All right, and 2 more. And Mr. Steve, do you think it's likely Perp was wearing gloves, like tight-fitting hospital latex gloves, during whole course of crime?
Most times I would say no, but They brought up the part about that he had created the essay of when he was doing that research project, and him talking to how they committed and everything. If this essay didn't exist, then I would say highly unlikely. But the ability of going out there and doing research, which was part of his doctorate anyway, and having the knowledge that what is the one thing that leads to a lot of criminals downfall, and it's going to be fingerprints. So is that possible? Yes, more so for him than any other. Most times I would say it's a very low likelihood, but with this one, I'd give it more a higher value than I would normally.
All right. And Ms. Sweet, did you notice a bruising on BCK's throat and cheek in court the other day?
I thought that was probably his shaving. And I think actually the sheriff came out that day or later and said that gave it some support that was due to the type of razor blades that inmates are giving. They're not giving anything that is
Got the
high,
aloe strip
that has it's not high quality. I can tell you that. And so and of course, if the court suspected anything, they would have inquired, and if they did, and they may have, about those injuries, and if there's anything to be addressed, they'll address it.
And this will do nicely. Do you think they had his parents' house bugged to listen to his conversation?
We don't know what they would have done for the surveillance, but yes, that can be a possibility of certain court orders. But it is also that when you do that, getting up to put those type of devices and things is high risk for discovery.
And full of nonsense, do most criminals make as many rookie mistakes as BK?
All of them think they have the perfect crime, and all of them fail. And thank goodness. But now there are criminals out there that have never been caught, and there will be criminals out there that will never be caught. And that's what keeps me up at night, worrying about some of those criminals. You always have to be alert at all times. But yes, and will certain criminals be able to always elude capture? Absolutely. But the ones that are driven and have their fantasy that they have to do certain signatures or certain acts, those are the ones that will always be recognized for what they are, serial offenders, and will lead to mistakes and eventually be caught or captured.
All right. I have two things for tonight. One Who Sees has been a member for 2 months. Yay, yay. Thank you so much. Purdue RN, a member for 4 months. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Purdue RN.
And that's it for me.
And,
oh, wait.
All right. Well, we got
one more. I got to show this. Wait a minute. I got to show this one. The Rockaways at Mrs. Steve. Will Stetson Bennett play in the NFL? I hope so too. We will see.
You just made her night.
You sure did.
You just made her night.
He's so cute. All right.
That's
Let
it.
me see if there's anything else.
Just check real quick. But guys, we appreciate all your support, the views. If you liked it, join, subscribe, share. And we appreciate everyone, what y'all do for this channel, our members and otherwise. It just means so much to us, allow us to go out and help others. And we will continue to do so through all. And if we missed anyone that supported us tonight or any contribution or anything, we thank you. And I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow night. I have a members, let's see, across the board, be all members tomorrow evening around 7, and then I'll have my midnight show, the morning watch, also Sunday night, Monday morning, at 12:05 Monday morning a.m. So look forward to seeing y'all. That's what I've got scheduled for the next day or two. And y'all stay safe out there and see y'all soon.
All right. Love y'all.